Hey, um, I'm going to post this on that one channel that I always talk about my advice stuff. We're coming up at that time of year where it's Easter Sunday coming up. Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and that beautiful thing of Easter Sunday. I was born on Easter Sunday at 12:30 p.m., right after church got out, to a mother who was told 2 months into her pregnancy with me that I should be aborted by her physicians because she had undergone a extensive series of x-rays while she was pregnant with me, not knowing that she was pregnant. She was told with absolute certainty by the physicians that continuing with this pregnancy was going to either put her at risk or it was going to potentially lead to a situation where she was going to give birth to a child who would probably die soon after birth. Best case scenario, I was going to be severely cognitively impaired. I was also going to be probably extremely disfigured and probably have significant health conditions as well. And they said, Shirley, it is in your best interest to just terminate this pregnancy. My mom left her doctor's office crying and terrified. She went home, she spoke to my dad about it, and she spoke to my grandmother, who is actually the most important person that she spoke to. My grandmother, the woman that I am named after, was probably the strongest woman of faith that I have ever known in my life. My mother was the second person behind her and the strongest person I've ever known to be a woman of faith. They made a decision together, my mother and my grandmother at that point in time, that they were going to pray every single day that my mother would give birth to a very healthy child, that they would take the risk and trust in God, that I would be born as best as I could be, and that they would manage whatever circumstances came from her continuing with this pregnancy. My father did agree to it. My father wasn't a man of faith at that time, really. And my grandmother and my mother, both who did devotionals every day. My mother was just extraordinarily a woman of faith, sometimes to her own detriment. She ended up really... my mom was a lot like Martin Luther, would pretty much almost emotionally self-flagellate because she sometimes felt like she couldn't live up to God's standards, which she never should have. She was a wonderful woman. So my grandmother and my mother spoke on the phone every morning for that entire 9 months, praying every day that I would be born okay. My mother said she also started to get a little bit of specific. She said, when you ask God for what you want, you should be specific. And she started to pray for a girl. And when she told the doctors that she was going to continue with the pregnancy, the doctors just shook their heads and said, Shirley, we can't convince you one way or another to do whatever you feel is necessary. We're just telling you, based on everything that you have done during your pregnancy, that this is really important. This is a bad decision. My mom said, I don't believe that. I believe that this child is supposed to be here for a reason. And I believe that God has given me this child for that reason and that purpose. She prayed every single day with my grandmother. Every single day. And when I was born on Easter Sunday, much like God's promises, He promised my mother that I would be okay. She never took any medications or drugs during her delivery because she was so concerned that when I arrived on this earth that she needed to make sure to count all of my fingers, all of my toes, and make sure that I was okay. And I was okay. I was her miracle. I was my grandmother's miracle. A grandmother who was diagnosed with cancer and given 6 months to live, and yet prayed for 5 years every single day to God that she would have one more day to spend with her granddaughter. And He gave her that. And He gave her a strength that led me to know that this woman could carry on and not show her pain for those 5 years, because I never knew she was dying during those 5 years. I was really mad about it when I found out. But the truth of the matter is that she asked my parents and everyone to not tell me because she didn't want that to cloud our relationship. She was a believer. I watched that woman go up the stairs in our church, Grace Lutheran, to take communion. And never, ever once heard her complain about her pain. I never knew. My mother always, throughout her life, told me that I'm supposed to be here to do something big. And in a lot of ways, I am. I'm doing something really huge, and I keep denying it, and I keep not seeing it, but I've made differences in people's lives, women's lives, and God has given me so much to be grateful for. He has given me amazing people that I have been with long term in my life that have each taught me something about love that I would have never ever learned before. I experienced those loves. He has always been there with me, even when I'm headstrong and stubborn and want to go against his wishes. And as his child, he knows that I am that person. And yes, I do reference God as a man. I that's what I grew up with. I look at the Holy Trinity as masculine, feminine, and then spiritual. The truth of the matter is that I am a pastoral counselor. That's what I went and got my degree in. I have a faith that is stronger than anybody, even despite all of the stuff that I have been through, losing all of my partners. I mean, not all of my partners, but losing Eric, losing my parents, losing my grandparents. And I am making a difference in this world, one person at a time. And at the end of the day, God put me here for that reason. And if there are people in your life that won't see you for who you are and the absolute beautiful gift that you are on this planet because God put you here for a reason, then that person doesn't deserve anything about you at all. None of it. God put us on this earth to do one thing. It was His promise and His covenant that He made with us. He asked us to love one another. That's what He did. And every little man-made law that we try to put in the way of our faith and our belief and our outward representation of God's love is a detriment to Him, because He didn't ask us to judge others. He never asked us to make decisions on people's worthiness of life based on man-made interpretations of his word. God is extremely clear. The Bible is also extremely clear if you understand the Bible as a document. One half of it is history, one half of it is gospel. At the end of the day, I will go toe-to-toe with anyone in terms of biblical understanding and theology. I know it backwards, forwards, and upside down, and I know so strongly that God is with me, even despite the mistakes that I have made in my life. And I've also realized that a lot of those things that I once thought were mistakes were actually things that taught me more than anything could have taught me before. God has granted me absolute grace, which is something I will never deserve. But I don't question that. I also don't flaunt it, and I also don't take it for granted. At the end of the day, you make your choices in life. If you are a person of faith and not just a person of religion, God will grant you and show you everything that you're supposed to have in this world. But if you're a person who just buys into religion, you'll never see it. The road to ruin is paved with good intentions. Always has been, always will be. And I know that with all my heart and soul. And every time that I have tried really hard to stand up to God, God has reminded me on every occasion that He is still here and has my back every step of the way. And just when I think that I don't trust Him enough, He shows up to remind me to trust Him. You are worthy. God put you here for a reason. Don't you ever forget it. And don't you ever accept anyone who can't see it. And that's just my advice to you, any of you who want to be loved by another person in this life. Don't accept less than what God made you to be. Don't ever. And that is all I have to say for today.